Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Alif Afiki bin Razali and my mathematics number is 01DDT23F1171. Today I would like to present to you my PBT of OOP. The first coding, which is I use a import Java utility scanner to have a input from a user, and then I represent a person with a name, and then I create a class person first using a string, and then I do the name, and then I use a public person string name. Why I use a public? Because in another file I will use person class. I started with a public string get name. So after a get name, after the system get name, and then it will return to the name of the person lah. For the second, how to represent a candidate in the election, I use a class. The class name is candidate, and I extend from a person. Then I use integer votes. It will track the number of votes for the candidate, and then I use a num is for a candidate number, and then I use a public candidate string. The variable is string, and integer is number. And then for the next line, I use a super, which last name is the name, and then this the variable is in votes, and this num. Next class I use this is where I increase the vote count by 1. So how to increase the vote count by 1? I use a public for add vote, and then I do vote plus plus, which is it is plus 1. It will returns the total votes for the candidate. So when the system get votes, it will return back to the total votes for the candidate. And then when the system get name, it will return back to the name of the candidates. So for the next line, I use a class name of voter, and then I extend from the top, which is a person. Then so this boolean voted, this is for tracks if the voter has cast their vote. Then I use a public voter string name also. Super is same. I want to use from the top, which is a name class. So basically, if the voter is not vote, it will go to false. So this is how I use to mark the vote. So if the voter has voted, it will come out to true. And then in this, if the voter is not vote, and then I will go to false. For the next coding, I return back to the name that voters that has been voted. For class candidate registration, it will manage the registration of candidates, which I use array here to store the candidates, and then I use integer candidate count, which is start with from 0, and also use a public candidate registration, which integer with max candidates, which apply from the user input, which is if the input will say 4, and then it's the max candidate is 4. So this is how to register a new candidate. I use a public void to register candidate, and then I use string, variable string, and then the class's name as candidates, which is in array, which is I use candidate count, and I declare it as a new candidate. And in the new candidate it have name and candidate count, and then I pass 1 to array. Next line, I use public void display candidate to display the list of registered candidate, which is I use system.out.println candidate list. So this is how the candidate count, which is if it's below 1, it doesn't count, and then if it's up than 1, it will count. Use the public candidate, which is array, and then get candidate back, and then I return back to the candidate. For public integer, it will return back to the candidate count, so to return the number of registered candidate. For the next, I use a class voter registration to manage the registration of voters. I use voter array, how much it will store the voters lah. And then integer voter count, which is start with a 0. Same also, it is same with the candidate registration. I just only change the voter and in the candidate. It is basically the same thing as the upstairs is here. This is where I check if a voter has already voted. I use a public boolean that has voted and also a string name. So in this I use loop for if voters count, we use the get name back to the name section. Sorry, back to the name class, and then it equals to name. So return back to voters name that has voted. So if the voter has not voted, it will return to false. This is to for the next I use a marks I use a mark voted to marks a voter that has a vote. Same with the voter count. I use I equal to 0. When the I below than 0, it will not get the voter count. And if the vote is ups than 1, you will get the voter count. So this is where I check if a voter is registered or not. It's the same thing with the above, but it is not for. So if the voters get name and equals name, it will return to true. But if the voters did not get name and equals name, it will return to false. So that's all from me. Thank you. And I'll pass to my friend.
Hi, my name is Muhammad Aziz bin Halim. My metric number is 01DDT23F1181, and I'm going to be continuing the explanation for our code. So I'm going to be explaining of the voting process and also the results, explain the results process. So here's the class for poll process, which is basically handling the voting process. So first we call out two objects that we already made from earlier coding, which is candidate registration and also voter registration. And next, we create a new constructor which is called poll process. This constructor is to get the input from above coding. Okay, so next, implement a new method which is named conduct poll. So first, we create a new scanner so that we can receive users input, and then we print out a statement. Just enter your name and then string voter name goes to next line means the next line that the user's input will be uh, voter's name new value. Okay, next we have to check whether the voter is registered and hasn't voted. So we have an if statement for this. So it just basically checks whether if if the voter is registered or not. If not, then it prints out you are not registered to vote, and the coding will stop because it stays written. And next, we have an if statement to check if the voter is registered and has voted. So if the voter has already registered and already voted, it will print out a line saying you have already voted, because this is to stop from double voting. So if this happens, it will also end the coding. Okay, so next, move on to displaying the candidates and to ask for the user for a vote. So we call out the method from earlier coding, and then we print out enter the candidate number you want to vote for, and we just int cnum sc.next side. Int basically means you gain the next integer that the user's input is going to be cnum's new value. So we have an if else statement here, which basically validates the candidate number and cast vote. So we check whether the uh, the the candidate number that the voter inputs is a valid one. So if it is a valid, if the voter inputs in invalid one, it will print out system dot out of print line invalid candidate number. If not, then the candidate that the voter inputs will gain one vote, and then it will print out system.out.print line vote successfully cast. So next, we move on to the displaying the poll results, which is the final part of the coding. Okay. So first we create a new class, which is a poll result class. Then we call out the same object that we already called out before. And then we same constructor as before. We want the value from earlier coding. And then okay, so here's the method to display the results. So first we're going to print out a simple polling results just above. Then we create three new variables, which are an array, integer, and also a string for a winner. So how do we calculate the winner? We use a for statement, but there's also an if statement inside. So for the initialization, it's I equals to 0, and then it's condition if I is below uh, the candidate count, and then for the increment I plus plus. Okay, so this basically just prints out the candidate's name and the number of votes that they have, and this if statement to check out who's the winner by just checking whether the maximum whether they get bigger than the maximum votes, which will be declared as the winner. So we check using an if statement if the candidate's vote is bigger than max votes, then max votes equals to the vote, and then the winner we will get their name by using this method. And then lastly, we will print out system dot print line again, winner with the candidate's name that won, and also this sentence with their vote, and that's it. So that's it from me. My friend is going to continue for the main class, and thank you.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Ikram Zafran bin Barat Tadi Sabutra with my matrix number being 01DDT23F1143, and I will be continuing the explanation for our code, and I will be explaining about our main class. So here is our main class, PBTOOP. It is for managing the election system. Next, we made the public static void for the header, and next we're moving on to the public static void main. So first we instantionize the scanner, and also we give value to the candidate registration, voters registration, and for this Cirex Max and Virex Max, which we will be using later on. And first we call the header. So moving on, this is the main menu loop. While true, if Cirex Max equal to 0, it will appear candidate registration. Else, if it were already registered, it will appear the same thing, but with in a bracket registered. Same goes for voters registration. If Virex Max equals to 0, and it will appear voters registration. Else, it will include the registered in bracket. So this is for the next one, the next options, and here it will ask for the options that we want to pick, and this is for the input. While the sc.next line is to remove the line buffer that sometimes will make the code bug. Next, we're moving on. Try. This is to implement exception so that it will appear error if there are some out of bounds rule, like if there are only 3 candidates but we pick 4, or only 3 voters or name, and we pick things that is not included in the code. So Here we will be using the switch case because it is um, choice. How do we say it? The choice. So for case 1, the candidate registration. If Cmax equal to 0, it will ask the user to enter the number of candidates, and it will add the max candidates. If the max candidates were inputted as 3, and then it will ask it will ask the candidate's name 3 times. When it's done, it will +1 at Crack Max, and it will return break, or else it will appear the candidates were already registered if the Crack Max is not equal to 0, and it will break. For case 2, same thing as candidates registration, except for now we make it for voters. If VREC max equal to 0, and it will ask to enter number of voters, and it will ask the name of the voters for how many times. Say if we put 4 number of voters, then it will ask for the voters name 4 times, and it will +1 at VREC max, or else it will appear the voters were already registered. So for case 3, to conduct the poll, if CREC, which also means candidate registration, equals to null, or VREC, which means voters registration, equals to null, it will appear, please finish the candidates and voters registration first. So if there's no value added before in the candidates registration and voters registration, then it will not appear the poll process. It will appear this text instead, or else it will go to the poll process, and it will send the output. Then it will break. Next, the result. If the candidate registration equals to null, then it will appear error. No candidates were registered, or else it will appear the poll result. Lastly, for case 5, to exit the system, here we use return, so that when we choose the number 5, it will not repeat the loop, but it will end the progress instead. So yeah, and we have default. If the user were to put not the numbers between 1 to 5, it will appear choice invalid, and it will loop the menu again. And here is catch exception E, and system.out.print line error plus E, which is the message if there are any exceptions. Like if there are only 0 candidates, but we want to vote for number 4, then it will appear error out of bounds. That's all from us. Thank you very much.